Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Access Minnesota brings you the newsmakers and the stories that shape our everyday lives, with analysis from University of Minnesota faculty experts. Now, here's Jim Dubois.
This month on Access Minnesota, we talk to a University of Minnesota professor who wants to ditch the outdated school textbooks and get kids to explore the world through technology. Bringing together a passion for geography, technology, education, and the environment, Professor Aaron Doering has created Adventure Learning. Students follow Doering as he spans the globe from Nepal to the Amazon to the Arctic. Dr. Aaron Doering is an associate professor in learning technologies at the University of Minnesota, where he holds the Bonnie Westby Huebner Endowed Chair in Education and Technology. He's also the director of the Learning Technologies Media Lab and a fellow of the Institute on the Environment. Professor Doering, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thanks for having me here.
You are passionate about what you call adventure learning. Tell us about that.
Adventure learning is about bringing the real world into the classroom. So literally what we do is we build an online learning environment, we write a curriculum, we identify an issue that we're going to focus on, we identify a culture. So it might be, let's say years ago, it was Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, focused on drilling, oil drilling at that time. And so we wrote a curriculum around it, we built an online learning environment, and then we literally traveled there. And so we took a dog team through the entire Brooks Range up to Kaktovik over to Prudhoe Bay. And as we're out there in the real world, they're experiencing it along with us. So we bring this real data into the classroom, tied to an online learning environment. And we've done that now for about 15 years. And so it's all about getting students motivated about learning, get teachers motivated about teaching the content.
Why do you believe that adventure learning is so much more effective than traditional teaching methods?
Well, I don't know if it's more effective, but what we do know is that we all like to be part of a story. We all like to be part of an adventure, right? I mean, you have a great adventure on a weekend. You want to tell someone, and you say, hey, you know what? It'd be great if you could be part of it. And that's one thing we find with adventure learning is that you have a beginning, you have a heightened experience, and you have an end. So you have this whole experience that students can come along with you on. And so we literally have traveled the world from the Atacama Desert to the Amazon, just returned from Nepal, the entire circumpolar Arctic. And with every one of these adventures, students can join us from the very beginning throughout our entire travels, all the interviews, everything that we endure. And along with following us, they are now studying also from the curriculum. And so that means that when they leave school, they want to actually sign on to the online learning environment when they get home and see more of it, right? So it motivates them to come back into it. And there's other facets of it too. I mean, collaboration. So it's not only the collaboration that's happening within the classroom, but it's a collaboration between the students and other students throughout the world. It's students with experts on the issue that we're focusing on. And it also allows teachers to interact with each other too about the content that they're teaching.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face when you try to integrate technology into the classroom?
Well, that's a big question. There's many challenges to integrating technology, be it iPads, be it a new learning environment, whatever it is. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have now is, like, even if we take the iPad, for example, and we go to one-to-one, there is the professional development that needs to be provided for the teachers. There's a whole different pedagogical approach that's going to need to change. Within our field of learning technologies, we look at technology, pedagogy, and content. And those three things need to come together to have an effective integration within the classroom with technology. And when we put a new technology in there, then we have to figure out how we're going to teach that content and what type of new pedagogy are we going to use within the classroom. And that's the teaching side of it, right? The pedagogical side of it. But then you also have other hardware issues like the charging the batteries and stuff like that many times people overlook. And then you also have to have buy-in. You have to have buy-in from your clientele, that is the students and their parents and so on. There's many facets to how to successfully integrate technology in the classroom. Now I focus just on the iPad, but what we try to do with adventure learning is actually make it so that if you are on any type of platform, you can join in on that experience. And thus you don't have to be in the classroom, you can be in the back of your parents' car and you can be signing on and interacting with us.
Do you think our educational systems have been too slow in adopting new technologies?
I don't know that they've been too slow. I just wish that we would have been more effective to date. I think what happens is that instead of really looking at the problem in the classroom and then coming up with a solution, what we do is we look at what the newest technology is and then try to integrate it and push it within an existing curriculum. So for example, if we're looking at collaboration, why don't we look at designing a new online learning environment that allows collaboration and integrating that into the classroom instead of saying, okay, you know what, this is a whiteboard and we bought it all for every single classroom, now we have to figure out how to integrate it. So look at the problem first and then let's come up with the solution.
Traditional textbooks may not be able to include some of the most up-to-date information, but a good textbook will be well researched and will meet curriculum standards. Is there any worry that technology moves perhaps too fast and is not able to verify some of the facts?
Well, it's funny, I just came out with a new book with my colleague, and it's called The New Landscape of Mobile Learning. And we always joke that, what we just published literally just a few months ago is going to be outdated tomorrow. And the reason is because it is moving so quickly. The apps are changing, the delivery method is changing. And so that is a challenge that we have. But what we do need to do is be able to deliver these textbooks in a way that is very efficient and that we are doing the fact checking along the way. Another textbook is the Integrating Educational Technology into Teaching that I have. And one thing that we try to do is everything within there has to be within the last 2 years. But the problem is that there's still that lead time to publication. And so if we can get our information out to the students sooner, it's going to be much better. And so that's a challenge that publishing companies are having. And that's also the challenge in the way that we set up our classes and try to integrate the newest research within it.
Technology advances at a rapid pace. When Access Minnesota returns, Professor Doering discusses the challenges of keeping classrooms up to date.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages. You're watching Access Minnesota. Here's Jim Dubois.
Back to our conversation with Aaron Doering, the director of the Learning Technologies Media Lab at the University of Minnesota, and his work on adventure learning. There's been a lot of buzz about the new iPhone 6 that was just released. How does a classroom keep up with the latest technology and also keep up with the cost of upgrading that technology?
I always say that you have to select one technology and know it well. And I say that both for the teachers and the students. And so if I was a teacher in the classroom right now I would not get stressed out about some of the new technologies that are being presented to us. What I would do is I would focus on one thing and know it well. So if I'm a geography teacher and I want to learn how to use GIS within the classroom, focus on the GIS program that is going to work well with the technology that you have and focus on that. Don't get stressed out about the new technologies that are being thrown at us, because if we focus on one thing and do it well, I think we're going to do much better service to our students.
In 2004, you started delivering adventure learning projects to students all over the globe. How did this come about and how exactly does it work?
Well, it came about because I was a K-12 teacher myself at one point, and I wanted to teach my students better. At the same point, I was working for National Geographic. I had this passion for the environment, and then I have this passion for technology and wanted to bring those two together. So came up with this approach to design a learning environment, identify the issue that we want to focus on, identify the culture, we write a curriculum, and teachers are able to integrate it within their classroom, and then we travel to these places. We do real-time updates. So we have this little satellite system that we're updating no matter if we're in the tent in the Arctic or if we're in the bush in Australia, and students are able to experience real-time in the real world what they are learning about also in the curriculum.
There are some very politicized debates occurring now in education, whether it's feuds over what to include in history texts or how to address the issue of climate change. Do these political feuds affect students' learning, and have you gotten any backlash for teaching about climate change?
You know what I've done with all these projects, and that's a great question, is I try to present both sides. I mean, when we first started doing adventure learning projects, everyone was talking about global warming, now then it went to climate change. I mean, even the names have changed. But what we try to do is always present both sides within the curriculum. So when we're traveling to a location, we're not only interviewing the people that might be talking about how it's impacting them and their ability to grow crops and so on, but we're also talking to heads of state and so on that have maybe a different political view. And so I think that's one thing that we need to do, is that we need to present both sides and let the students decide for themselves. And that's something that we definitely try to do. But you know, it's so funny, anytime you bring up an issue like climate change, you almost already turn off 49 to 50% of the population, depending on what side you're on. And so that is a tough thing. Yeah, I think we just all need to, especially in education, have that open mind to be able to really look into how the content is being delivered, and hopefully it is delivering both perspectives, thus the students can make that decision.
Do students in the adventure learning and earth education programs also learn outside of the classroom? Obviously the technology is in the classroom, but can they go home and log on and learn?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's the online learning environment that they can log on and learn, and then also there are a number of projects within the curriculum that gets them out of the classroom. But the other thing that we just recently did is we launched what's called We Explore. And We Explore is another learning environment that students can go out and they can do an exploration for themselves. And so they can do their own adventure learning project where they identify the mission, the question, they add all the media artifacts, so you have the photos, the videos, sound, they're doing their text. And so now we have an environment that students are creating their own adventure learning projects literally around the world. And so it's not only in the curriculum within the adventure learning projects, but then there's also this add-on, this other environment that's called We Explore.
You focus a lot on bringing current issues to students. How do students engage with topics that are occurring right now?
Well, I think, there's so many issues right now that need to be brought, I feel, into the classroom, be it political, environmental, and so on. But one thing that I always find is that students, just like you and I, if there's an issue at hand, they want to discuss it and they want to be aware of it. And they're much more motivated to talk about something that's been on the news within the last week and the last month than something, unfortunately, many times 20 years ago. So that's one thing that, it's also a benefit of adventure learning, is that we're dealing with real world issues at this time. And thus it's a great thing because students are excited about it.
Throughout all of your travels, which experiences have had the most profound impact on you?
I get that question a lot, and it's really, really difficult. I was thinking about that yesterday as I got the same question, and I have a passion for the Arctic. I always have. There's something about it, something about the people that always pulls me in. But as I, have traveled the world from Africa down to the Amazon, down to Torres del Paine, I was just thinking about the region of Chukotka, which is the east coast of Russia yesterday. There's just some amazing people. And they're so similar yet so different, and I think that's the beauty of the work that I've been able to do, is that see the similarities among all these cultures and these people, but also look at the challenges, and the challenges are very similar too. They're dealing with issues of change related to the environment, and so they're dealing with issues of change related to technology, social issues, and so there's many things that bring them together. I can't identify one area of the world that I like the most. I think I like the area most where I'm at that point, truly.
What lessons have you shared that seem to resonate the most with your students?
I think, just like I was mentioning earlier, is that the world is actually very small and the people within it are absolutely beautiful. And that may sound a little, lofty, but it's true, is that I really want to bring the world into the small area right in front of them and get them excited about what's out there. I grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota, and I didn't travel much when I was young, and I think about how blessed I've been to be able to get out in these cultures and around the world, and that's one thing that I get to bring to the students now. And you know what? Something might spark their interest. It might be related to a culture, it might be related to the environment, it might be related to some technology that we're trying to introduce, whatever it is. But that's my hopes with these projects.
When Access Minnesota returns, more on how adventure learning integrates technology into the classroom.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages. You're watching Access Minnesota. Here's Jim Dubois.
Here's more of our conversation on integrating technology in the classroom with University of Minnesota professor Aaron Doering. You're also a professor of learning technologies. Tell us about some of the new technologies that are coming up that you're most excited about.
I think the field of learning technologies is very exciting. It really is. I mean, and And we're always looking at how to use technology to improve lives, to improve learning. And so we also need content, right? Is that it's just not the technology, but we need content. So it's all about collaboration. I have the background in geography, so all my work has been very environmental. So we're looking at how to design new apps that are engage learners, and engage learners not only in the classroom but also outside the classroom. We're looking at how to use some new technologies to be introduced around the world to improve lives. So there's so many things. It's not just the new website or the new app. It's looking at pedagogy. What are the new pedagogical strategies that we're going to be using in the classroom to introduce these technologies? It's a very exciting time. I also love just that this whole mobile push. It's pretty interesting to see where that's going to go, and I think it is going to transform education. Not only because it's ubiquitous, it's here, it's all the time, but also, like I mentioned earlier, the hardware. I mean, the batteries last much longer than they did even 5 years ago, and that's truly going to change things.
Can we apply adventure learning to subjects that we don't think traditionally of as adventure related?
Yeah, and that's one thing I've been very excited about, and why I've been able to travel the world a little bit talking about it, is because people want to use it within content areas other than the environment or so on, and it can be used even just locally. So for example, if you're working with pre-service teachers and you're trying to teach them how it is in the classroom, what's the real world like? Literally, we've set up programs around that where pre-service teachers are learning about what it's like to be in the classroom, and thus the adventurers, the explorers, are the in-service teachers giving updates real time about how what their life is like and the challenges they have related to cooperative learning or discipline, whatever it might be. So we have the issues like that. A university up in Canada is using it within their business classes, and they're tying business leaders into the online environment, providing that adventure as the business leaders share what it's like to actually do the work that they're studying for. So there's many applications to it, and I think that's that's one thing we always hope, is that something we come up with can be applied to numerous areas, and that's what we're seeing now, so I'm pretty excited about that.
We know that some school systems have bigger budgets for technology. We know that some parents are better off financially and can buy the newest technology for their children. Does it bother you that some students may not be able to participate in programs like this simply because they don't have access to the proper technology? Absolutely.
I think that's a huge issue, and that's one issue that we need to address on a political level, but also on a pedagogical level. I encourage teachers to look at the different pedagogical approaches to using an adventure learning project in their classroom, or anything for that matter. What is the best approach to, yes, we still have to talk about it today, the one computer classroom. But we also have to solve that issue. And there are many people coming up with new innovative ideas on how to get technology in the hands of learners that is very inexpensive, but still, we know that you still have to pay for internet access and issues like that. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed, and what we try to do with our projects here is just try to make them available as many platforms as possible. So, for example, in the areas in Africa that we spent time in, they didn't have access to water in many of the areas. They didn't have access to lights, but many of them had cell phones, believe it or not. We see that all around the world, and so how is it that we can design these environments that could even work in these mobile platforms around the world? And that's a challenge that we all need to face.
Traditionally, most curriculum has been developed at the school district level in the public school world or at a particular private school. With technology like this now, do you see perhaps more sharing of curricula, perhaps among school districts not only across the state, but perhaps across the world?
Yeah, we're already seeing that. It's not only in the open access move of having our publications available to people, but you're going to definitely see that with curriculum. You're going to see that like we're seeing with all the app development. The world truly is opening up, and thus it's going to change the way on how curriculum is not only developed, but also delivered. And I think the challenge then is how that model is going to fit in with this model of standards and bring those two together.
When you are utilizing media for adventure learning, and I'm thinking of media, video media, audio media, as opposed to a textbook.
Sure.
Textbook learning is fairly simplistic. You read the textbook, you highlight what you need to memorize, and your focus is pretty much on that book. Do you find that when you're creating media for adventure learning, that you have to live up to the expectations of the consumers in terms of the production values, the pace of it? Tell us about that.
Yeah. I get comments a lot about the quality of the video that we're putting out, and it is high quality. and we're always trying to do better the next year. And even the stuff that was just recently shot in Nepal was just used on CNN. The expedition before north of 60 in the Arctic was used on the Weather Channel. They literally can just pick it up and use it right off the website, right? And so, getting back to your question of, we're fighting against all this media that the students are interacting with all the time, and it's high quality. And so, yeah, I do expect that the content that we put together is of such high quality, it's going to engage the learner, and it's going to engage them not only on the level of the content, but also the level of the way it's edited and what it looks like and brings it in. I mean, it's like the old classic questions, the great media debate in our field. Do media influence learning? Is it the pedagogy within the way that the media is developed or delivered? I mean, what is it? And so I do always try to have the next year's product or products be a lot better than the year before. Technology is getting better, and then also we have to get better about being able to do that. But we're cutting it literally in the field, and uploading it with a little, what's called a BGAN satellite. And so we also have to figure out how we can get the high quality video and get it out as quickly as we can.
Professor Doering, tell us more about your Earth-ducation project.
Right. As I was saying, you never want to take two words and put them together, Earth and education, but yes, that's what it's called, Earth-ducation. And that was after doing the entire circumpolar Arctic by dog team and educating people about the circumpolar Arctic. I said, you know what, there is this disconnect between education and sustainability, because what students were learning, for example, in the Arctic, in the curriculum, in the classroom, was a complete disconnect between what they needed to know in order to live in their culture, on how to hunt on the land, their language, it was being lost. And so there was this disconnect between education and sustainability. So that's what this project was based on. And thus we've gone to every single continent except Antarctica and interviewed people in the most remote cultures about their perspectives on education, their perspectives on sustainability, and the intersection between the two. And it's been quite the ride, as you can imagine, going around the world. But what we've done, we delivered in this adventure learning format. We got students excited about it. And what was different about this one, too, is that it also involved the general public. So it's not only someone in the K-12 classroom, but my father, a farmer in southern Minnesota, right? I mean, they were logging on and they were participating along with it. So it's been a fun project.
And Professor Doering, what current issues, perhaps both domestically and internationally, do you see students most interested in?
Related to technology, and over the last year, I've traveled a lot talking about technology in a number of different areas, and thus on the international platform too. People are very interested in mobile learning. People are very interested in how is it that we can design an app that can be quickly delivered, that can deliver the content at the level that we want it to be. So mobile and and online learning is obviously a huge issue, and there's a lot of discussion still around MOOCs and the impact that they would have.
And MOOCs are the massive online
open courses, yeah. And so there's it's all about mobile, it's all about online, and that's related to technology. Then I deal with a lot of stuff on the environmental side, and I can honestly say that on the environmental side related to all the AL projects, the Venture Learn projects, is that people are talking about climate change. They truly are. No matter where you stand on it, people are talking about, they want to know more about it. They want to know the causes of it. And so it's been fun to get so many different perspectives around the world. And so between the technology and the environment, it's been a good ride.
Could you walk us through the process a student would go through to create a project in adventure learning?
Sure. I mean, there's the curriculum that teachers can download within the online learning environment that then utilize within their classroom. But one of the most favorite projects right now is related to the We Explore environment that I mentioned, and that's where students can go in, they can put in their mission, they can do their question, and they're literally doing their own investigation about a certain topic that they've identified, or one that we're also researching when we're out there in the AL environment. And so you now have students around the world within this environment, and you have all these different expeditions that they created. So the expeditions are actually a research question that they've answered. And that's one of the most exciting ones I see right now, because it's a complete constructivist environment. Students can go in there, they can do their own thing, and then they get to highlight it. And they're also using the same type of media artifacts that I would use on an adventure learn project. So they're using all the things that they're used to, from Instagram to Twitter, but they're using the photos, the videos, and so on. And so it really brings them in.
Have you ever encountered any political obstacles? I'm thinking, for example, perhaps a country that its educational system isn't quite as free as what we're used to. Would that government ever interfere at all in any of the programs that you have tried to initiate?
we haven't faced any issues related to the education program that we're delivering, because actually most people want the story of their culture to be told and the issues that they're facing. And so we've always been welcome in, and we've received a number of gifts that aren't the norm, from chickens to, I mean, it's just amazing all the different gifts that we've received when we've traveled to these places. So we've definitely been welcome in. The only issues that we face have been sometimes related to travel, as you can imagine. When we traveled over to Russia, for example, we flew across the Bering Strait, landed, and we actually had to fly back over because the person that we were going to meet there wasn't there. And so then we had to fly back over again, you know. So there's a lot of logistics, obviously, around these adventure learning projects, but they've all been successful. You know, logistically, no one has gotten hurt, and we've met some amazing people, and it's been great so far.
Professor Doering, if our viewers are interested in learning more about your work, can you direct them to some online resources?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my personal website is actually chasingseals.com, as in chasing seals on the ice, because I've done that quite a bit in my life. That has all the different projects, and also the Learning Technologies Media Lab, the lt.umn.edu. And so between those two, you can find all the different projects that I've been talking about here today.
Professor Aaron Doering, thanks so much for joining us on Access Minnesota.
Well, thank you.
That's all for this month's edition of Access Minnesota. We'll see you again next month. Thanks for watching.
Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Join us again next week as we bring you the newsmakers and stories that shape our everyday lives. Access Minnesota is produced by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association in cooperation with the University of Minnesota's College of Liberal Arts.